Okay, this next video, I want to talk about some questions that you need to ask about curriculum. Now, I'm going to ask you these questions, and you may or may not know the answer, but more importantly, what I'm trying to get you to do is to think about this before you purchase curriculum, because I want to help you not only make a pretty close match with the curriculum, but to save you thousands of dollars in the long run, and not just money, but also a lot of stressful moments. So here's a few questions to think about, because sometimes what we do as homeschoolers, we just jump right into the curriculum picking and we don't even know a starting point. So here's a few questions that I want you to think about when it comes to selecting curriculum. Now, I have my notes right over here on the side because I love to talk and I don't want to get off topic here. I want to keep the questions pointed with you as a flow so we can just go right down through them. Okay, the first one is, what are my goals for homeschooling? What are my goals? Even writing them down. A goal will help you. You'll be able to look back at it afterwards and you'll say, you know what, I need to keep it real, because when we have hard times, I need to look back and see what my goal is, see why I'm leaving public school or private school. And there's a variety of reasons. Sometimes your goal may be, well, you know, they have special need in school. They weren't meeting it. I want to meet his or her needs at home. Another reason is perhaps you have gifted kids. Gifted kids are bored in classroom. They don't particularly teach to gifted kids unless they have a class that way, and perhaps it's an expensive school. So you can say, well, I want to go ahead in grade level, or I want to cover more content. Or perhaps you want to say, like, this is one of my reasons, why should other people influence my kids? I want to be the one to primarily influence my children. I have their good at heart. I can do this. So you may say, I just want academics. Or you may say, I homeschool for Christian-based reasons. I want both rigorous academics and Christian values. Or you may say, I'm more of a secular homeschooler, and we're not really Bible readers, so that's not really important to me. Whatever they are, you have goals. If they're not clear, your choice for curriculum will not be clear. What are your goals for homeschooling? Okay, what is your philosophy? In other words, should it be Bible-based, or should it be based on other minds of the past? What are your priorities? What's most important? Some homeschoolers feel character building is important over curriculum. Some homeschoolers have a college track and they're strictly interested in academics. All of those are your choices, your priorities. I'm simply going to coach you through this, as I've said before. All right, what subjects are important to you? For example, I've helped many homeschoolers through my conducting workshops with them. I've had homeschoolers who were science-minded. I have homeschoolers whose children were only interested in playing football. They're a very sports-minded family. Nothing wrong with that. So you have to decide, what are my priorities for my family? How are we going to reach them and meet them? Because if you don't, you'll continually get sidetracked by new philosophies that come up in the homeschool world, even new curriculum, because curriculum options for the homeschool world just keeps exploding every year. So unless you have a direction where you're going, you'll just jump to different things. Having a direction kind of keeps you steady. And it also keeps fear minimal, because you know you're making progress and this is the direction that you're going. Okay, so here's another question. Are you going to have help teaching, or are you going to have more help than you need? Okay, so when I mean help and more than you need, are you going to use a co-op? Is your child going to take some community college classes? Is dad going to teach part of them? How much do you need to do? Are you going to be the sole teacher? Okay, and here's another question. Do you have more help than you need? And what do I mean by that? Well, sometimes we have these little toddlers going around, the little dears, and they give us a lot more help than what we want. And sometimes our time is minimal. So perhaps it sounds good to get this other type of curriculum, but when we think about it realistically, our time is going to be short. because our toddler is our time scheduler. They're the one that rules supreme. They're the one that dictates, and our newborn, about how much time we're going to have. It's not like that always. I promise. It changes. It didn't do me any good when I was going through that stage for people to say, this too shall pass. I knew that, okay? And I'm not going to tell you that. But what I will say is that by you adjusting and being relaxed and maybe finding something that's not maybe exactly what you want, but close to it, will help you. So you may consider that you want something a little more laid out if you've got too much help, or you're pregnant, newborn, toddler, or all your kids are perhaps under the age of 5, and your time is very thin for planning. Okay, so then think about that too. What do you need? Something a little bit more laid out. Okay, here's the other thing. What kind of subjects should be taught separately, and what kind of subjects can be taught together? Now, I've just said something that's a real big secret when it comes to choosing curriculum that newbies just don't realize. Let me say it again so you get it, okay? What can you teach together versus what has to be taught separately? And that's about where I almost went insane when I was teaching my kids, because when I added in the second kid, I tried to keep things on different grade levels, even though they were close to the same age. So here's the rule of thumb. Subjects fall into 2 different categories as well. And I'm going to be speaking about this as I go on longer and talking about the different homeschool approaches. And that is, they fall into content or skill subjects. Skill subjects are also known as the 3 R's. Some states call them the core subjects, not like Common Core, but just the core subjects. Okay, so content subjects are subjects that are easier taught with all of your kids together. That is a sanity-saving tip. Can I take one science book and teach all of my kids together? Even if they're different ages and you have a huge span, you can still do it. We're going to talk about that too, but not in this video. I just want to share with you the 2 main categories so you can limit how much you actually need. Now, if you need to purchase something right now, then my suggestion is, and this is the rule of thumb, you aim for your middle child for that grade level. And always remember this, if you have to choose right now, the second seasoned veteran tip is that it's easier to take a book or curriculum that's for a higher level and break it down than it is to take for a lower level and go up. For example, we have a high school kid, we have a middle school kid, and we have an upper elementary kid. Well, what we could do is take a middle resource or even a high school resource, and then we break it down for the youngest. That's the rule of thumb. Okay, so that's the secret. Subjects fall into 2 categories. Now, the core subjects or the skill subjects, what are they? It's math and language arts. So it's not so easy for math and language arts to always be on the same level for all of our kids. Matter of fact, rarely. And I remember one year I was doing some personal consulting with one mom, and she had triplets, precious triplets. But each one of those girls, even though they were on the same grade level and same age, they weren't on the same grade level. Does that make sense? When I mean they're the same grade level, they were all starting kindergarten, but one of them was 2 grade levels ahead in math, and the other one was on grade level with kindergarten. The other one was just above grade level in math. So math and language arts are the 2 subjects that almost each child has to have their unique curriculum. Okay, the others, save yourself some money. History, science, art, foreign language, all of those subjects can be taught together using one resource. Now, why is that so? Let me just expand a little bit here because I don't want to lose you, but I want you to understand why. And that is content subjects, it doesn't really matter where they start. And this is the thinking or the understanding behind it. This is the way it's been for many years. In public school, they may take a course like, say, life science, and they may teach about the human body at 3rd grade. They may teach about plant cells or something at the 3rd grade, then they repeat back in the 5th grade. There's no rhyme to reason with science or history, the introduction of the topics. And on top of that, most states have their state's history as a primary focus for study for that state. So the point is that it doesn't really matter which subjects you begin in science or which ones you begin in history. And those subjects are also very good to cover with kids of multiple ages, because the younger ones can learn from the older ones, and the older ones can help the younger ones to understand. And there's not really a grade level on content subjects. If they want to study about the rainforest, let them study. If they're 3rd grade, let them read middle school, even a high school level book. It doesn't really matter. But reading, writing, and arithmetic, you want to be sure you're on the grade level for them, because those core subjects, those skill subjects, is what all the body of knowledge hangs on. That's how they make progress. If a child struggles in math, he's going to struggle continually on until middle school or high school. Okay? All right. Just a little bit about those 2 types of subjects. I really want to save you some money and realize the only focus right now is the skill subjects, the core subjects. Of course, you can get stuff on content subjects, but your money needs to be focused on the skill subjects to be sure you get a right fit for each kid. Okay, we're going to talk about it some more in depth. I'm just introducing it to you here because I want to give you a few more questions here to talk about. Okay, so then we sorted the types of language, the types of subjects to teach them together and the ones to do separately. One more I want to talk about, and that is, how many digital resources do you need? How much of your learning is going to be in front of the computer or on a device? Are your kids learning? How many physical books do you want? What's your belief system about the digital age that we live in? There's been a lot, in the past. There's been some information now where it says kids do better by actually writing. There's an ongoing debate in the homeschool world, and a lot of curriculum has just gone online. Not all of it. I happen to think having a mix of both worlds has been the best for every successful homeschooler I've seen. When I first started homeschooling, we didn't have so much stuff online. It was all DVD based. I love having the stuff available online, but also when I homeschooled my 3rd kid, I had to really put down some parameters about his time on the device, because it wasn't all learning. He'd start off learning, then he'd get sidetracked. So I really had to put some parameters on that. So just think about it. Digital, do I want part, half and half, or do I need all digital because I'm working, I have my hands full, it's easier for me to grab the device? You decide what you need this year. And just remember, it's not the same thing every year. You're not going to have the same sort of set of circumstances. Kids grow up, kids get more independent, you can change. Your only concern is, what do I need right now? Okay, so think about those set of questions. They're going to be a good kickstart to choosing curriculum.